Hey everybody, welcome to this introductory video introducing us for prepping us for block party number 89 tomorrow, Friday, December 17th. We're gonna go over kind of the latest framework, and I'm gonna use the word meta, right? Both for meta problems and more commonly for meta solutions. So let me screen share here really quick what I mean about meta solutions. This is a slide many of you have seen. And if you look, let me just introduce this slide really quickly for those who haven't seen it. So it's got 5 different rows. The 3 bottom rows are all about the world's problems and the root causes. You see here in the lower left, the root causes of our problems, and then some of our biggest problems. And then, big problems call for big solutions, AKA mega solutions. So the second row from the top, mega solutions, includes some of these mega solutions that we envision. Now, to not just birth these mega solutions as ideas, but to get them into physical reality and implemented on a planetary scale, we need something. There is a something that we need to get all that done, right? Ideation, development, implementation, right? We need a something to make all 3 of those stages happen, right? And that powerful something I'm calling up here in the upper right, you see the goose that's laying a golden egg. If that golden egg and that geared wheel are the same thing, right? They both represent solutions, mega solutions, right? So in order to have mega solutions, again, ideation, development, implementation, all the way through the end of planetary scale implementation, we need the goose that lays the golden eggs of these mega solutions. That goose is what we call a meta solution. It's that which generates. Meta is used for a lot of different meanings, and I certainly don't mean all of them. I mean a very specific one, in that it is that which generates or gives rise to or gives birth to solutions. Now, as you can see here on this slide, collective superintelligence, middle top here, this image represents, I'm moving my mouse around it. This image represents the grand meta solution, right? The goose that will lay the golden eggs of these mega solutions, not just the idea, but how to actually get them implemented step by step. How to do it, right? And there's a lot of answers to that and a lot of stages, particularly for a mega solution like solar radiation management, right? Or feeding everyone, right? Making food a basic human right, getting the whole world to go plant-based. Full-scale implementation, including getting all the resources needed, that's all going to take a tremendous amount of intelligence, collective super intelligence to be precise. But anyway, with this slide, I just wanted to really point out what I mean by meta solution, right? Hence what I mean by meta, that which generates. And so let me now share over here a sketch of this kind of 4-square quadrant that I'm creating. So for example, so here I was saying basically that collective superintelligence, a vastly higher form of intelligence than anything terrestrial that we've seen on Earth thus far, anything human-based. And there's been some great examples. Take NASA, for example. What a great example of collective intelligence. Still didn't reach collective superintelligence. That's what we're aiming for here. This then will, enable such physical solutions as food healers, marine cloud brightening to cool the planet, and others. But just these two alone will solve our biggest physical problems, right? For one thing, we have overheating, exponential planetary overheating, right? Leading to myriad other problems, right? We have destruction all the way to extinction of life on Earth, right? And we also have, hunger and poverty, right? Which, each of these lead to myriad other problems, like notably, crime and other forms of violence, and as desperate people seek to meet their basic needs. So as it turns out, food healers as a solution, it's not just a solution, it's also the beginning of getting a whole bunch of dominoes to tumble, because once the world sees how easy it was to feed everyone, to eliminate hunger and malnutrition, and get the world to go plant-based, people will really feel their power to make big changes happen, those who participated in that, notably those who participated in the collective intelligence and this emergent collective superintelligence evolving from all this as this grows exponentially. Food healers will set a whole train of dominoes going in terms of basic human needs becoming basic human rights, okay? Likewise, marine cloud brightening, as we actually cool the planet, right? People will say, oh my goodness, look at the power that we have to do good. Now let's do this, let's plant trees, let's, regenerate whole ecosystems. There's so many things that humans can do, including just getting out of the way, right? Dr. Silas Rao has mentioned that many times, just get the humans out of the way and let nature bounce back. All right, so now I'm going to talk about an elephant in the room, right? I've never actually drawn an elephant before, but if I were to draw one, it might look something like this. The elephant in the room, wait, it's got like a big trunk. Okay, so the elephant in the room is what I'm calling the Metta Problem, right? And what that means is that which is actually causing these problems. And it's a very real thing. And it's kind of hard to pin down because it has a lot of facets, but I'm gonna talk about it in terms of our mode of production, really our mode of being in the world is, basically hoard or die, right? And pay no mind to who or what you impact when in the process of hoarding, accumulation of wealth. It's basically the Hunger Games is what we're living. We're living a dystopia that we're trapped in. The key meta problem here is that we're trapped. We're trapped in a really bad game, right? A totally omnicidal game, and that it's killing everything. Anyway, so the fact that we're trapped here has left us totally unable to actually attend to these physical problems. And in fact, being trapped in our systems, the Hunger Games, that is really driving all of these problems and preventing us from forming collective superintelligence. So we really need to grapple with this, but it's not something that we talk about every day. Hey, how's your trapped life there? Marco, how's being trapped today? Oh, great, Jamin, how's it for you being trapped? Oh, it sucks, but whatever. Okay, I'll see you at the barbecue, And so, we're trapped in the food that we eat. We're trapped in this predatory capitalist system, where you basically have to be a predator of some kind or other or face, starvation, extreme poverty and a lot of suffering. So, but while we're all trapped in that game, number one, we have very little time or attention for anything else. And number two, it's hard to see anything else but the immediate life or death, Hunger Games style, game that we're in, or mode of production of the global economy, right? So I think we need to grapple with that, because if we fail to diagnose our problem and the roots of our problems, right? If we fail to diagnose that, then, good luck finding the right solution, right? It's like going to the pharmacy and just say, give me a bottle of pills. Well, what's your ailment? I don't know. I mean, what are they going to give you, right? Something that's not correct, right? So we need to have a correct diagnosis. We've diagnosed our physical problems, right? I'll screen share again so we can just have a quick glance at those. We've very correctly and very accurately diagnosed, we who are awake and aware and, looking at these things, we've diagnosed the physical problems of exponential planetary overheating, exponential destruction of the biosphere leading to whole ecosystem collapse and attendant mass extinctions of species, and hunger and poverty and other forms of deprivation of humans, right, living in this dystopia. Among many other problems. I'm not saying they're the only ones, emphasis on the ellipses, lots of other problems, but these are the big ones, right? The destruction of life and the overheating of our planet. Those are the big ones right there. And the attendant poverty that comes from the impoverishment of people and of ecosystems. So, now, what's fascinating here is, just as collective superintelligence is going to work on these mega physical problems and coming up with their solutions, collective superintelligence can also go to work on our own entrapment, right? Our being trapped. Collective superintelligence can basically organize a planetary prison breakout to break us out of our current entrapment, which is really nasty. So it's going to be kind of like, a battle of two, like in a Marvel movie or whatever. It's going to be an epic battle of very powerful forces of good, collective superintelligence, the whole, heavenly hashtags that we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, versus some incredibly persistent and seductive, to the point that people just take it as reality. Well, that's the way the world works. Of course, people own land. Of course, people do totalitarian agriculture. Of course, people raise and torture and kill animals and eat their flesh. Of course, you chop down trees, sell the lumber, and then run cattle on the decimated ecosystem that's left behind, et cetera, et cetera. So the meta problem is huge. The meta solution is even bigger, as it's growing exponentially. Yes, our problems are also growing exponentially. So it's also a battle of exponentials, a battle of time. Anyway, before I share more about the meta solution and how I envision, or we envision, because it's really been a collective of all of us coming up with it, I'm just going to pause for any quick questions or comments. Okay, Dave, and please don't forget to unmute your microphone. Go for it.
Yeah, I just, in terms of the term collective superintelligence, okay, one of the ways I personally operationalize, for me, what it means to be succinctly human. Like what is it about me as belonging to the human race that sets me off from my other cohabitants on this planet, of the other members of the animal kingdom? One of the things that defines me as being human, it's some people will want to go towards language, and I really see language as a subset. There's a skill that's incumbent that's really not directly tied to language, and it's this capacity to any moment, whatever situation arises that I'm faced with, that I have the capacity to generate a response that's just going to be tailor-made to fit that response. Okay, kind of how I would personally operationalize what it means to me to be human, and I think that's a layer that I would hold as something essentially of who I am, that's above the collective level. That's who I am also on an individual level. So I'm guessing what I'm wondering about, and of course I'm going to acknowledge that this question I'm asking is going to be something that's possibly you're going to be talking about later, but how do we, that concept that you have about collective superintelligence, however you frame what that means, how do you envision operationalize it? We have some very poor examples historically of how we have attempted to operationalize those kinds of things. An issue that really was pervasive, like probably from the late 18th century going on into the 19th century, and finally got operationalized by the 18th Amendment, was an attempt to address the problem wrapping around alcoholism. And in our attempt to do that, we tried to do this thing called prohibition, and we found out that was not the optimal way to attempt to deal with the kind of issues that are pervasive around the uses of, not only for me, not only alcohol use, but any kind of addiction that kind of hampers our behavior. And it's this issue of how do we operationalize this thing collectively, short of creating systems of legislation that define the behavior by don't do this, as opposed to try to do this.
Yeah, totally. Okay.
Yeah.
Totally got your question and totally got the context.
That's kind of it. And I know it's a broad question, and I know that you already have probably issues that will address that, but I just wanted to raise that. That's kind of where my curiosity is right now. So when I see the term collective superintelligence, that's like my first response is, what the fuck is that? Because that's almost on some level.
So Dave, let me answer, because you've put a lot of good questions on the table. Let me answer, and then let me know how I did. Okay. Yeah. Meanwhile, any other questions or comments? Marco, Alan, James, before I answer Dave's question, which is the next section anyway, which is what is collective superintelligence and how might we operationalize it? Go ahead.
That's it.
All good so far anyway, for me, like, carry on. I'm up to speed with where you are anyway so far.
Yeah, I'm there too. Just
go for it. Yeah, awesome. Good. All right, so what is collective superintelligence? And here I'm going to share that, and we've been working on this for literally like 7 years now, me and our community here, among other communities, and of course many other communities have been working on this as well. What is it? So one way that we've come up with, after all these years of trial and error and study and theory and dialogue about this, we've come up with a form of collective superintelligence as a decentralized universe of transformational conversations which are hyper-connected, right? And so let me just draw a picture of what I'm talking about. Imagine that each of these little black circles represents a conversation, right? You know, we are here, right? Here we are having this conversation. We happen to be recording it. And, you know, we're loosely connected to a few other conversations out there that we know about and that they know us, et cetera, right? But then, you know, but for the vast majority of those the conversations that are out there, we simply don't know about them because there's far too many to know about. And there is no map, right? What's urgent here, the first step of getting us all hyper connected, is creating a map, you know, and an index, you know, a searchable index of all of the conversations that are out there that are transformational, right? See, if we had this map automatically and by default, we would all be connected. Boop, 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 right? We know where we live in this map, in what, you know, realms or topics that we're talking about. In the case of today, all the world's problems, all the world's solutions, including the meta solution of collective superintelligence. And we're envisioning that the one obvious first step here, which would take us really all the way there, because the collective superintelligence is what emerges once there is a map and an index that's searchable of all these what's transformational conversations. See, the thing here is transformational conversations. This is the it. This is the there. And then, of course, you know, the universe of transformational conversations constitutes, you know, a much bigger it, right? The set of all of them. And then, so the UTC, the universe of transformational conversations, is the there. The D and the H just characterize that it, the big it. Decentralized, yes, and hyperconnected. We need both of those. The hyperconnected, again, emerges from the map and index. That gives us the hyperconnectivity that we need, particularly if it's searchable, so that anyone can come in and say, okay, hey, show me all the transformational conversations that are scheduled this week, you know, that pertain to marine cloud brightening, or that pertain to, you know, veganism, or whatever, you know, whatever complex set of criteria. And we're gonna get to that topic in a bit. Let me just name it down below here so that we've got a reference point to it. But we're going to get into the realm of not just topics, but frameworks, right? Categories, frameworks and their categories, and topics under those categories. And I'm going to argue that you cannot have a framework without having a telos or aim, you know, oftentimes implicit, right? But a telos nonetheless. So we'll get to that. That'll be what we'll talk about next. But before we go there, you know, because that'll help us in the realm of what I'm talking about here when I say searchable, right? A searchable index. Well, how is it going to be indexed? And it turns out this is a very powerful way of indexing. We could do it just by keyword if we wanted to. That's the basic. So let me put here beyond, you know, keyword search. And by the way, and keyword search is so advanced thanks to, you know, Google and many others in the space. So we can basically get there with a searchable index based on keywords alone. But beyond keyword search, that's when we're going to get into this whole realm of frameworks and categories and topics. So bear with me and we'll get into all that. So, but at its core, you know, this is what we need. we need a map and index that is searchable of all the transformational conversations that are out there. Because once we have that, and once we kind of together make a leap of faith into, hey, let's not just have a map, but let's agree, let's self-identify. I'm just going to fill in green those who choose to self-identify as, yes, we're here in a transformational conversation, and green light meaning feel free to join us, right? And so how do we all agree to self-identify and make that visible so that we can be discovered, right? See, going green means, I'll just say going green, as in green light, as in, we're here, we're part of this universe of transformational conversations, and our doors are open. Come join us. This is where it's going to take a leap of faith. But I think we need to make this breakthrough, this leap into a much more public modality, at least that we have some meetings. Obviously, you don't have to make all your meetings totally public, but at least some of them, and during at least some part of your week, that you open up your doors and thus create the possibility for this massive hyperconnectivity. Because what we're going to see a lot of is a lot of people are going to be cruising around from meeting to meeting, and they're going to become sort of like ambassadors, you could think of it that way, right, between different meetings. Because right now we're pretty isolated, is the bottom line, right? We mostly go to our regular hangouts and meet with the people that we normally meet with, and we don't have either a map or of the other transformational conversations, or much of a welcome, frankly, other than like big events that are well publicized. People generally don't know of other conversations that they can just pop into. We try to be a notable exception here, and there are other notable exceptions, but the bottom line is, how do we get us all to go green? How do we operationalize this? How do we make it so that transformational conversations can basically opt in, right? How do we make it so that people can opt in, right? And so one simple way that we came up with is that we take the decentralized universe of transformational conversations that are hyperconnected, and turn it into an acronym, and then turn that acronym into a hashtag, right? Hashtag Dutch, DUTCH, and then we've added the number 42 representing the answer. This is our focus. Our focus is the answer. What are not just the physical solutions that we need to focus on and implement, but also the meta solution of collective superintelligence? How do we get this totally built out? And Dutch 42, so imagine that each of the transformational conversations that have decided to go green, turn on the green light and join what I'm just calling the Dutch universe. Imagine they tweet out Dutch 42 along with whatever meeting details they have about their meetings, coming up in the next week or month or whatever. You can tweet it whenever, as soon as you know about it. And even if it's impromptu, just tweet it out. And just imagine that everyone did that. Every transformational conversation in the universe of transformational conversations, self-identified by everyone tweeting out hashtag Dutch 42, then that makes it so that multiple, and this is a very important part of decentralization, that makes it possible so that there can be multiple indexes or indices built that are searchable. Just like you've got, Google search and Ask Jeeves and Mahalo and Bing and Yahoo search and, ask.com. Anyway, you've got all these different ones. Likewise here, right? The internet is not owned by Google, that only they can index it and make it searchable. So you can have lots of different, search engines, frankly, and other forms of aggregators, indexing, making searchable, and also mapping. Vincent Arena's Catalyst and Trove systems are, I think, the furthest ahead, and so I think they'll become quite well known. But one key part of decentralization, which is absolutely crucial, is that no one owns or controls the data. And the cool thing with hashtags, nobody can own or control any hashtag. Anyone can use any hashtag, right? So it's the ultimate form of decentralization. There is no Facebook or Google or Microsoft or anything else who will be in charge of this or able to influence it in any way beyond what any other normal human being can do, which is to tweet out transformational conversations that basically go green, as I'm talking about here, that turn on the green light and say, hey, we're part of this self-identifying universe of transformational conversations. And so imagine, say 10,000 such conversations self-identify, right? That constitutes a planetary brain of 10,000 transformational conversations, all hyper-connected to each other, all on the same map, all in the same search index, all searchable by keyword. Again, later I'll get into framework, category, topic, which is a kind of a more sophisticated and much more, I'd say, useful way of approaching this. But again, keyword search is definitely good enough, right? And maybe we should just really focus on that for starters. But now I know there's going to be questions around Dutch 42, and not everyone's going to like the acronym hashtag Dutch, hashtag Dutch 42, et cetera. I'll address that in a minute because we've got a much broader solution. I'm just using hashtag Dutch 42 as an example. I'm just saying, what if everyone tweeted out with that hashtag? So to spill the beans on the broader solution to that, just consider that hashtag Dutch 42 is one of a vast and growing set of what I'll simply call heavenly hashtags, right? These are the entire set of hashtags that anyone uses to go green, to self-identify, right? Let's say they didn't hear about Dutch 42, or they heard about it but don't quite like it, it doesn't quite fit there or whatever. Okay, great. Come up with your own heavenly hashtag. Dave, I'll get to you in a second. Let me just complete the point because I might answer your question. So just like aggregators and search engines will display and index all of the transformational conversations, they will also keep track of and index all of the heavenly hashtags that are in use, including new ones that get birthed every day for, say, specialty uses or with a particular focus on a particular community, et cetera. So we really open up really the full universe. I often refer to it as the Dutch universe, but we could call it the heavenly universe, the heavenly hashtag universe of transformational conversations. And again, we don't have to limit ourselves to one or even a finite number of heavenly hashtags. We can have any number that we want. The heavenly hashtag simply identifies the set as a whole, the whole family of these hashtags that enable a transformational conversation to tweet itself out, put it out there in social media. It doesn't have to be Twitter. It can be any form of social media or any form of media. Just publish it, just get it out there so that the search engines can find it, right? Twitter makes it very convenient. That's why I just often use Twitter simultaneously with just broadcasting it generally. So with that, with the heavenly hashtags generally, we empower and enable people to self-identify as transformational conversations, and thus bring this universe of transformational conversations to life and to light, right? Where we illuminate, right? By going green. We turn on the green lights through our, tweeting, so to speak, these heavenly hashtags, thus self-identifying as part of the heavenly universe, the universe of transformational conversations that's generally moving in the direction of heaven on earth, right? That's what makes it a transformational conversation. Anyway, Dave, you've been patient. You've got a question. Go for it, Dave. And please don't forget to unmute. Please don't forget to unmute your microphone.
Well, I'm hearing you using a lot of terms that you have already like embedded as kind of givens, then for me are not given yet. Like for instance, what is heavenly hashtag? What is it? What is a transformational conversation? What do you mean by green light? Those are the three questions I would have right now. If you can elaborate,
Okay.
Then we'll go further from there.
Okay. So we've got heavenly hashtags, we've got green light, and we've got transformational conversations.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So let's start with transformational conversations, because that's the it of it. That's the fundamental thing that we're talking about here.
Right.
So a transformational conversation is a conversation which is aimed at, broadly speaking, transforming, healing, and saving life on earth, right? So that's a transformational conversation. Now, this transformational conversation could be focused on the individual, and it could be focused on helping individuals attain, levels of peace and grace and spirituality and enlightenment, whatever. They could be transformational conversations that focus on the community. Sarah's here. I'm going to also pause because I got to take a quick call. So I'm pausing. All right. So back to what we were talking about what is a transformational conversation, right? A transformational conversation is a conversation that is in one way or another oriented towards saving, healing, and transforming life on earth, right? Period. So if it's about food healers and feeding people plant-based foods, it's a transformational conversation. If it's about cooling the planet, it's a transformational conversation. Because getting the world to go plant-based and cooling the planet are two of the ways in which we save life on earth and heal life on earth, right? And ultimately transform life on earth. And this includes a transformation of humanity, a spiritual transformation at the level of the individual, the community, and all of us as a species. And I've made the point many times that the myriad transformational conversations that are happening in the world today already, put them all together and it's a powerful force. Put them all together and it's a very powerful force. But how do we put them all together? That's a question a lot of us have been grappling with for quite some time. How do we do it? Right? And the bottom line is we haven't figured out a way until we came up with the concept of the heavenly hashtags, right? Like, for example, hashtag Dutch 42, standing for Decentralized Universe of Transformational Conversations, which are hyperconnected, and other hashtags that convey, hey, I'm a transformational conversation, and we're generally open for people to either just pop right in or at a minimum request permission to come in, right? And so open to, basically cross-pollinating with the other transformational conversations, right? So the heavenly hashtags are hashtags that people can use, that are totally free to use, and that are created precisely for this purpose, that we enable all of the transformational conversations out there that want to be that want to be on the map, that want to be in the index, that want to be found, that want to be discovered, right, by other solutionaries like ourselves, right? They can self-identify with one or more of the heavenly hashtags, like hashtag Dutch42, for example, which is the first one that we came up with. And there are lots of others that people will come up with, and everyone's encouraged to come up with whatever heavenly hashtags you need to. If your heavenly, if a suitable hashtag doesn't already exist, if one already exists, I would recommend just using one of those, like hashtag Dutch42. Everyone's invited to use that who's having a transformational conversation, right? And I imagine we will get more sophisticated at clarifying exactly what we mean by what is a transformational conversation, right? If a bunch of teenagers show up and they want to talk about hip hop music because, it helps liberate the spirit and whatever, okay. Is it really a transformational conversation? I don't know. There's going to be some gray area stuff, but the bottom line is, and this is a key part of decentralization, we actually want to eliminate the powerful person owning and controlling this and saying, hey, you're in and you're out. No, to be decentralized, anyone who self-declares a transformational conversation is one, right? They're part of the universe of transformational conversations. Now, if it turns out they're a spammer or a scammer or something like that, well, they can be called out. Hey, you see this one transformational conversation on the map? It's gotten, 1,243 dislikes and, 45 red flag warnings, et cetera, right? That kind of information will be available as well, also in a very decentralized way. Right. In other words, people will express their like or dislike by, tweeting it out with an appropriate hashtag. I imagine, unless there's some other way, but it has to be decentralized. This is key. It has to be decentralized and beyond anyone's ownership or control. And hashtags fit the bill perfectly. See, whereas domain names can be owned, bought, and sold, nobody owns hashtags. Nobody owns hashtags. They're a public commons, right? They're a public good. Thank you, Sarah. So anyway, the heavenly hashtags enable the transformational conversations to self-identify. If you tweet out, hey, hashtag Dutch42, hey, we're having a meeting on, vegan potlucks and da-da-da, great. Which reminds me, we've got some vegan potluck meetings coming up. I think those are perfect opportunities to put out the word that, hey, we need volunteers and we're doing this, and here's my card. Go ahead and print out some cards, whatever you need to do. Seriously, because that's high priority. Anyway, that's a footnote. But but that's an example of transformational conversations that are very urgent. Food healers meetings, right? And like the ones that we have every Friday right here in this room that we'll have tomorrow from 7 to 9 a.m. and 7 to 9 p.m., right? So we want everyone to know about these meetings because we want everyone to come. Literally, we want everyone to come. And if we get too many people in one Zoom room, we'll open up other Zoom rooms or breakout rooms or whatever we need to do and divide and conquer, because there's so much that needs to be done, right? So that's a perfect example of green lighting. We want to put out a big, broad green light. And that's what tweeting with hashtag Dutch42 does. It puts our message out there with a big green light that says, join us. Sarah, go for it.
I agree with everything you're saying. I would like to be able to collaborate more with people that are like-minded and somehow figure out how we can get them to get these hashtags going. And it doesn't mean that they have to necessarily be trending, but just to understand the general premise of what we're trying to do. And I would like to also say that when it's time, I want to talk about food healers in different cities, because there are already food healers in different cities serving the vegan food. And I've tried to reach out to them, but it just seems that maybe we should reach out as a collective group, and that becomes more of a collective intelligence where we gather information together. And I've messaged them twice through Meetup and they don't respond. So I'm trying to figure out how to get these other people that are already doing this in different cities, such as Atlanta, to see our website, and that way we can try to collaborate all together. Because isn't that what we're supposed to try to do anyway, is try to get us all together, and we have the same general mission to feed everyone and change life on earth so we can sustain ourselves, actually. And that's great. I just wanted to mention that quickly, just because I have been reaching out to many organizations in different cities that do the same type of what we're trying to do, but they just either don't see the message, I guess, or don't respond. So just trying to figure out what another method of communication would possibly be. Thank you.
Yeah, totally, Sarah. It's exactly that frustration that's giving rise to Dutch 42 and the heavenly hashtags, because the pain that you're describing there, the frustration, and the urgency of connection is felt all throughout the universe of transformational conversations. We all want to connect with each other, but we just don't know how to do it in any way that's efficient or scalable or non-frustrating. And so basically what we've come up with is a holistic, system-wide approach that basically says, hey, I'm not the only one who has this problem of how do I reach out and connect? How do I find, first of all? And then and you're talking about the organizations that you've already found, you've discovered them, and they just don't pick up the phone. So what's up with that? So we having thought very deeply about this problem for all of us who are having transformational conversations, we constitute a universe. It's just that we're totally disconnected, and no one has created a map of the heavens of the universe of transformational conversations. So that's why we came up with the heavenly hashtags, so that each transformational conversation, like food healers, Friday morning, 7 a.m., Pacific time, every Friday morning, so that we can tweet out, right? Hey, we're having our meeting every Friday, 7 a.m. Food healers, join us. We tweet it out with hashtag Dutch 42, which is one of the heavenly hashtags. And here's the big leap. Imagine that all the transformational conversations got in the habit of doing that. We take all those tweets, consolidate them together into a database, and publish it as a map. And then you can say, oh, wow, I see the map of all the transformational conversations. Like, look at James's artwork there up on the screen, right? This map of the universe. Imagine that's like the map. You've got all these bright lights, which are transformational conversations. And you can put in keyword search, show me all the ones that are, related to food. And then, most of them go out, and then 10% of them remain. And those are all the transformational conversations that are related to food. Show me all the ones that are related to feeding, as in feeding people, right? And then you get that subset. And then you just show up. You don't worry about sending emails or messages, you just show up and say, hi, I'm Sarah, I'm Jamin. Hey, we're food healers, Los Angeles. What's up? Hey, we're doing the same thing. Cool. Let's compare notes and let's figure out how we work together, and let's all come together, right? In, in like national, even international meetings, so that we can, form an international movement for feeding everyone nutritious, delicious plant-based foods as a basic human right. That's how we're going to make this thing go global. right? And in parallel, you're going to have the marine cloud brightening folks getting together and working on marine cloud brightening, right? Across a vast network of conversations just about marine cloud brightening, some about the engineering, some about the public relations, some about the finance, some about the logistics, some about, environmental impacts of having all these boats cruising around, even though they're totally wind and wave powered, et cetera, totally sustainable, no hydrocarbons burned. Anyway, we'll be talking about that from 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific time. So anyway, hopefully that's clear, so when you tweet out using one of the heavenly hashtags, you're green lighting. You are saying, hey, green light, right? Like when a barber shop, they turn the light on and their barber pole is spinning, for us, it's green light, come on in. Green means go, come on in. We want to meet you. We want to talk with you. And this is partly where it takes a leap of faith, because what we're talking about is all of us taking the leap of essentially going public, right? And saying, hey, we're public now. And we're making a public invitation for you, yes, you, to join us. Here's what we're talking about. Here's what we're focused on. Go ahead, Sarah.
So this kind of brings me to the point that Jane just did. Jane just switched her network from Jane Unchained to Unchained. And she has an app. You can download it. I hope everybody on here will download the app, Jane Unchained. It's called Unchained. And it's just called Unchained. It's a red app. It's free. You can put it on your Fire Stick, Roku. Obviously, I don't have any of these things, so I'm just giving you the lingo. You can watch it anytime on your phone, your iPad, any device that has a Slecka. And what she did was she finally said, okay, I'm going to take this public now. So she's been Jane Unchained since 2017, 18. And now she's taking it out to the masses. And that's great because now everybody knows about it. It's on Clubhouse now. She just did a big launch today on Clubhouse. And I think it's great that she's doing this. And I think that's what we're headed for. And even getting an app called Food Healers. We don't need it right now, but we just need to, because I constantly have to go to the farmers markets and ask them for food and show them that, oh, here's our website here. And I'm validating. We need to finally get to the point where we don't have to get validation. We already have the validation because people know about us. So I believe that we should just take Food Healers more on a global level and just keep saying the word Food Healers so that it just becomes a common household name, and that, oh, the Food Healers will be out. Just go to see the Food Healers or something like that. And the Food Healers are all over the world. As we know, there's Food Healers everywhere. We just need to somehow, like you're doing, collectively group them and get us together, because we're all doing the same thing. And we all know that. And just like I was telling you about Atlanta, they have this meetup group called the Vegetarian and Vegan Help Prepare. The way that's titled is Help Prepare Vegan and Vegetarian Food to Give Out. And like I said, I've got to figure out how we can contact them. I was hoping that you could help me with that as well. But we just want to try to get this going because we have the new year coming up, and we want to just try to expand this on a more global level than just doing it once a month in LA. That to me seems more like potluck, and that's fine, but we just need to expand a little bit more and reach people that are really hungry. And it's not just the houseless. So yes, it is a lot of houseless that need to eat, but we do need to reach the middle class, I believe, is who's suffering the most right now. I truly believe that is the middle class is the ones we need to get to. And I'm not really sure how to do that because we keep having all these huge food organizations try to supersede us, and they're giving out things that maybe not plant-based, and that kind of hinders our efforts. But we just want to try to be the leader in giving out food, because that's the only way we're going to heal people. Just giving out stew once a month is going to help, but just healing everybody is kind of a concerted effort where you have to feed the hungry Hosea Williams has it every year in Thanksgiving, and he feeds, 100, probably about 20,000 people. So that's what the level of we should get on. I don't know why anybody would be scared of that. Everybody I've talked to seems very timid, and they're oh, this is too much. It's overwhelming to them. They can't even foresee how we would feed that many people. But I do know that it can happen because it's already happening, because it's on a global level already, where you have UNICEF, you have World Aid feeding, you've got people in Kentucky that had the tornado, and they said they had already raised $10 million. So if they can do that, and if 10, let's say 10 million people give $1, that's $10 million. You can get 10 million people to give $1. You've raised $10 million. You have to get it all the way down to where it's very succinct and very easy for people to understand, like 1 + 1 = 2. Like, come here and we'll give you stew. That's it. Because if we keep trying to make it more elaborate, that's when people get overwhelmed and confused. That's just my personal thought on it. I'd like to see what other people would think in creating more of a smaller volunteer network, and then that would be the way to expand it out. So start really small like we have it now, but keep expanding it within our city. But then as we're doing that, everybody else is simultaneously expanding as well, because they've got the concept, they figured it out. So it's almost like a cookie cutter, like a franchise, where we have to say, okay, we need 25 pots of stew to serve X amount of people. And then that's how you set it up. I just believe that, even though I don't want to set it up as a business model, it does have to be a model that people can follow. Because that's why I think people aren't doing it, because they don't even know, they don't have a guide. The guide is us just saying, okay, just make the stew and here's the recipe. But I believe that these people need to come to the meetings as well, or something. I'm not sure. So just let me know what your thoughts are on that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Sarah. Thank you. Yeah. So let me tie that back in with the general conversation about the universe of transformational conversations, because Sarah and everyone, I see this as something extremely positive for food healers, for the simple reason that of all the transformational conversations that are happening out there, there are two that are absolutely scorching red hot urgent. One is food healers and the other is marine cloud brightening. When we get both of those implemented at full planetary scale, we will have solved, I don't know, on the order of 90% of our problems, when you consider that food healers is not just food healers. It's also the first domino in a whole chain of dominoes, because people are going to say, wait a second, because it's going to grow. Food healers is going to grow exponentially. That's its destiny. It's going to grow exponentially into this movement, and we're going to be feeding everyone, and we're going to be kicking ourselves for why didn't we do this sooner, right? Feeding everyone plant-based foods, right? Because we accomplished two big goals with that. We end animal agriculture, and we feed and nourish everyone on Earth without exception, right? And then with marine cloud brightening, we solve the other mega problem, which is exponential planetary overheating, which is on track to killing us all through starvation or dehydration or exposure or whatever. And so we can knock out 90% of our world's problems. Oh, that's what I was saying. The row of dominoes. Once we see that, oh my goodness, we could feed everyone plant-based foods. It was so easy. Oh my goodness. And it's so inexpensive, so efficient. And there's so many just benefits across the board for all of humanity and all of Mother Earth. We'll say, wow, if we could do that, what's next? Why aren't we providing shelter for everyone? Why are we letting those people sleep out in the rain, right? And dying of exposure? Why don't we have shelter for everyone? Why don't we have basic health care for everyone? Dental services for everyone? The basics at a minimum, right? And so I think that food healers is the logical starting point for this whole revolution in turning basic human needs into basic human rights, period, full stop, right? Likewise, marine cloud brightening, once we get that done and we've cooled the planet with marine cloud brightening, and the planet's cooler and everything's way, way better, especially combined with food healers and going plant-based, people are going to say, wow, if we could do that, what else can we do? And you'll see tree planting campaigns and biodynamic farming and soil conservation and pollinator corridors and wildlife corridors, all kinds of great stuff happening. Anyway, we got a couple of hands up. I think Miranda might have been first, followed by Sarah. Go for it, Miranda. Great to see you here. And Miranda, you're on mute. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm just kind of, I'm going to ease into this. I'm going to slide into it.
Sure.
But it's such a complex thing, you know, to take a disempowered world and bring them to the point of empowerment. And when we bring people to the point of empowerment, they want to fight for humanity. They want to serve. They want to give back. But on a daily challenge as a healer, the fight of bringing people to empowerment has an energetic cost for all those who volunteer their time for it. And when we are in larger groups, it is much more beneficial because we have other people to lean on. So the beauty of like the use of hashtags to get in this day and age to get more people involved, and you know, you can create a circle instead of having a singularity trying to create an enormous ripple effect. But it is the greatest challenge, and I even within my own community, I meet that same challenge. I really do. I'm building and building here, and this is the first time upon building a community that has worked so well. And I think the only shift of it was I leave the seed in front of someone and I see if they're going to take it or not. And then those who choose to take it and work with it and nurture it, like those are the people I start to invest the time in more. Like you've moved through with like food healers, and people are starting to invest time, and people are getting ground in that. Like it is building, you know, and it's not as fast as we want it to be, but it is gaining, right? It is growing. There is a ripple effect. There is growth, and people are having more and more conversations like these all over the world. So it is working. And how to tie it all in without setting everyone off into absolute information overload, which we are already at, the crisis of overload and overwhelm and it's like I just keep asking the universe, just guide me in the right direction. Just guide me in the right direction. I don't know where I'm going, and let me just step out of the way and like guide me in the right direction, and I will try my best and I will serve my best and I will hold space as best as I can. And when I meet a place of understanding, I hope that I can look at my shadow self and work on it, you know. But I don't know if everyone is as open to doing that. I don't know if they're there yet. And everybody's at a different level of information. And it's supposed to be that way, I think. Like, could you imagine everybody in an awakening all at the same time? It would be just as much of a crisis. It would be a little dangerous. I'd be a little bit scared to leave my house. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know as I came into new pieces of information, I went through so many stages of emotions. And maybe it's like we're not meant to make that depth of connection yet. And we are just meant to like ride the wave at this moment. And it is uncomfortable. But when we are uncomfortable, this is when we create the greatest change. Back to the lovely field. Thank you for listening. I hope it made sense.
Beautiful, Miranda. Thank you. Thank you. Makes perfect sense to me. And I've got a few things to say. And Sarah had her hand up first, and then I'll comment more. Thank you.
I love what you said, Miranda. I really do, because it is scary, because it's like every time we do anything, we're trying to let go of our fear, right? So I always just try to remember that the two most important words in life are let go. And it's really like let going our fear. But I think it's also with the classism, the reason why the food healers is so difficult to keep getting people to help us and stuff, is they don't understand the classism around food, and that food is so personal to people, and it's like so nourishing. And when you try to ask somebody to change their food choices or try to eat healthier, and they're not ready or open to it, then you're invading their space, and they feel that you're trying to tell them how to live their life. And of course, that's the pushback, but that's what Jane was just talking about this afternoon during lunch hour. She was on Clubhouse talking about addiction, and she's been a recovering addict for 26 years, and she's written, #1 bestsellers, New York Times #1 bestsellers on addiction. And basically she tries to talk about how important addiction is, because it really comes to the addiction of food, and how most people are addicted to sugar, oil, and salt. And that is so addictive that she said she had some friends over for dinner, and the one kid was crying because he didn't want to eat vegetables. He said he wanted a hamburger because that's what he was used to eating. But it's all about, just not just educating, but everybody has their own personal addictions to whatever they're addicted to. But addiction is the #1 reason why people still eat animals. That's why so many people, they give up the meat, right? And I was like, oh yeah, I don't eat meat anymore, but I could never give up the cheese. I could never give up the cheese. Why? Because you're addicted to it. And like Jane says, one drink is too many, and 1,000 is never enough. And that was a great point she made today, because it doesn't matter. We have to break that addiction cycle. And it takes about 28 to 30 days for someone to try to detox their body. And I just believe that if we talk to people, and that's why I was really trying to get the food healers going more than once a month, like once a week. Of course, I would love to do it every day, because if you think about it, if you give someone the stew every day for 28 days, they're going to be feeling amazing and nourished. I'm sure they don't want to eat the stew every day, the same thing for 28 days. But my point is that you have to get people to commit. And that's also another issue with people. They feel they don't want to commit. I don't know why. I don't know psychology of people. I just know a lot about addiction through Jane. So thank you. I'm complete.
Beautiful, beautiful. Great stuff, Sarah. Thank you. So I want to address all the points that you've raised, Sarah and Miranda. And I'm going to do it in kind of a broad brushstroke way, in that to your points, Miranda, about, information overload and overwhelm and all that. It's perfectly normal that we should all be feeling tremendous overwhelm right now because of the state that the planet's in, and the acceleration of destruction, the acceleration of the rate of destruction, the rate of overheating, the rate of biodiversity loss, loss of wildlife, habitat, etc. So it's right to feel overwhelmed, and we have an ability to overwhelm our problems with tremendously powerful solutions that are absolutely right and spot on, like food healers. Thank you, Sarah and company. Like marine cloud brightening. Thank you, Professor Stephen Salter and company. We simply need to come together. As we come together, and just imagine the map, right, and the searchable index of all the transformational conversations. What that enables you to do is not try to assimilate all of them, heaven forbid, right? But go where you can do the most good, where you can contribute the most. Now, interestingly, Sarah, you've been very steadfast in working so hard and never giving up on food healers and coordinating all this and feeding everyone. And, you dream of having more support. As this universe of transformational conversations comes together, right? You see how, like in James's painting, there's this one big bright spot right in the middle, right? That's food healers. That's the thing that's going to get everyone's attention, because as we talk about the world's problems, and as people gain a better big picture understanding, people are going to see that there's three big drivers of destruction, right? And that we can solve them all with two big solutions. The three big drivers of destruction are planetary overheating, which is exponential, destruction of the biosphere, which has also been exponential, and poverty, which drives people to, really bad places, physically, emotionally, spiritually, community-wise, crime-wise, violence-wise, destruction of nature-wise, etc. So we can solve both of those, as we've talked about earlier on this recording, but all three of those mega problems with two mega solutions: food healers and marine cloud brightening. So as people take in the full scope of our problems and they see the various solutions that are, being developed at different stages of development and or implementation, they will find food healers, and under different names, of course, and they will find where the conversation is really cooking, and they'll find us and they'll come. And a good chunk of those people will be from Southern California, and they'll say, hey, I'd love to get involved, right? How do I get involved? There was a gal we met out in Glasgow who's moving to Los Angeles, who wants to get involved. So I gotta let me make a note to follow up with her. I believe that the best solutions and the most urgent solutions will bubble to the top first. And those are food healers and marine cloud brightening. And we need both with urgency. And they're both totally different from each other. You see those two big bright dots in James's painting. The one far off in the distance is marine cloud brightening. The big one that everyone hears about is food healers. This is going to get turned into an exponentially growing party, because I believe LA, thanks to your amazing leadership, Sarah, and more generally, Annie and the rest of all the other volunteers and everything. Excellent leadership. And Jane Unchained, thank you, Jane. Thank you, Unchained, for your wonderful. So it's been a whole community thing, but I think we've got all the ingredients for exponential growth in Los Angeles, especially as we get media coverage and people say, hey, wait a second, we could turn LA from a war zone and a crime zone into a heaven on earth, right? So, hashtag food healers LA kind of thing, right? Let that be a heavenly hashtag. And then you've got in-person events that you can tweet out, as well as our food healers meetings, et cetera. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that leads me to my next question. Because we're in LA and everybody here, is somebody. Who can we get to help us promote food healers and get the media? Because that's really where it's at, is everybody has their own platform, we could go to Tabitha Brown, but she's got a gazillion platforms. Like, we have to find somebody that would be willing to help us take this on and show up at some of the events and just help us get it going. Because to me, this is just ridiculous that we haven't got it going on a more bigger level. It just seems so easy because everybody else seems to be doing it. Unfortunately, they're doing it with animal bodies. So it's a little bit easier for them. They're not having to cook the stew from scratch or anything. They're just getting tons of everything that's already extra. So I'm just trying to figure out, how do we get this, almost like we have to start serving it at the farmer's market. Unfortunately, I might have to, I'm almost thinking about taking a break from my pet sitting as much as possible and doing food healers full time. I feel like I want to do food healers full time. I just got my own apartment, so I do need to still, be pet sitting sometimes, so I can pay for the rent. But I got the apartment kind of as a vegan activist house because it's off Venice Boulevard. It's close to everything. And I'm Glow's staying there right now. As a matter of fact, I'm just like, anybody can stay there anytime because I'm pet sitting right now. So I don't need to be at my apartment. So why not? So it's kind of like an open door. So I'm not putting it out there like on the, I've always been like this. You just haven't known this about me. I'm just revealing it to you now, but I've always bought and had homes and condos just so I would have a place for people to stay when they come over. Because I could have just rented a bedroom. I don't have a beagle. I don't have anything going on, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to do food healers full time. I'm going to force myself and make that uncomfortable, that what Miranda was talking about, because it is very scary. This took me, 6 months to be able to kind of get to the point of okay, I have my own apartment now since end of November, even though I haven't even stayed there because I'm pet sitting. I have that open door. I'm like, if people are tired from the Cube of Truth and they need to stay, they can. And that's also a way to have people come over that are vegan, that can cook the stew over there, that can help me chop up because right now I've been having to go to Annie's on Friday nights, which she's not available tomorrow night. So I was really kind of depressed, but I'm going to do it here where I'm pet sitting because my client is vegan. They have a vegan kitchen. Thank goodness. Well, that was the real big barrier that I was having with, well, how do we do food healers on a more regular basis? Why don't I get a place of my own? Since I've had that before, why don't I just get a place of my own, step it up? I have a kitchen, there's plenty of room for people to come in and out if they're vegan and cook or whatever. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm just keeping this very tight-lipped here in this small room, but that's what I'm doing. And I'm happy to do it. It makes me so happy to give and to volunteer. And I'd love to be a full-time volunteer. That's what my mom basically did before she became a nurse at 45. But my goal is to do food healers full-time because it's so important. And it's so necessary. I don't see any other thing that could be more important than feeding people right now, honestly, and giving them nourishing food. And if we have farmers markets every day in Los Angeles, which we do, that is there's no reason for me not to be able to go to a farmer's market every day and get fresh food for free, which I can, as we all know. I just need some more support and some help. So that's me putting it out to the universe now. So like I trust Flo, and she has a key to my place, so she can come over and do whatever she's doing. She's working out something with James for filming with some microphone. They're like on the phone about that. But my point is that I want people to feel like, okay, they have a safe place to come. They know that we're going to be like, all it's going to be like is we're going to be chopping up vegetables all day and like doing stew and like whatever. And we're going to take it out to right there in the community, because I actually realized that where I moved, right off Venice Boulevard, right down the street, it's so insane. I can't even, there's so many homeless people, like houseless people. I actually feel guilty because like Air One is right there too. And Air One is a real expensive grocery store, more expensive than Whole Foods, if you can believe it. It is like the bougie of bougie. And I go there to get some of my juices, and I leave there and I just feel so guilty because, like somebody said today, the girl Jasmine Leyva, who did she's African American, the people of color that did the movie Invisible Vegan, Jasmine said it. She said, I order Instacart when I used to live in a Mexican neighborhood, and I felt so guilty because I wouldn't want to go to the store where I lived because the vegetables and fruits were so rotten and no good. And can you imagine? That's what's going on. So that's what we need to break that. So it's all about the classism. You just break the classism down, right? You just say, no, this is not anymore about, oh, there's an Air One in Beverly Hills about to open next year. And that's like a big thing, right? And it's like, well, there's also going to be an Air One right outside the door giving free food. That's the way I want to say it. It's like right outside that grocery store. I just want to set up that tent so bad and just serve the stew, because I want people to see their behavior, because that's my behavior too. And I want them to acknowledge that they are literally going in there spending $70 on 3 things or so, or 4 things. That's no exaggeration. Thank you, Miranda, for the heart. And they are literally walking past, and to get to my car, I have to walk past a multitude of vans, RVs, and the tents are very nice the way they're doing them now. They've really got them nice. They got like rugs and lamps and people are living outside. That's exactly what's happening. People are turning outside into RV parks, and I don't blame them because they are desperate. They don't have any. And now, if they're doing that, they're going to accept the stew. And no, I don't want to make this into like food healers giving food to the houseless, because that's Ingrid's thing. But at this point, there's like middle class people that are becoming houseless. These people are not like, these people are like working class. So I'm sorry to go on for so long, but I feel like I've been wanting to say this, and I've been wanting to like, okay, I'm agreeing. I'm going to do food healers like once a week. That's doable for me. But now I'm like, okay, I need someone to do it with me, because I am actually also scared because of the crime here in LA. I don't drive at night. It's no joke. People do follow home stuff. And so what I do if I drive home, I stop somewhere first and I pretend like I'm doing something before I go back to my clients' houses, because my clients are very rich and they'll have like multi-million-dollar estates, and I don't want to come back and be followed back while my clients are out of town. So I've been real careful, but I'm ready to step it up, and I just need some help. I feel like it seems so easy for us to do this, but it's like, what is the barrier? Why are we not able to get past the next barrier? But thank you everybody and this is Sir Galahad. He's a basset hound, a very needy basset hound, because otherwise I'd be out today serving stew, right? It's like any day I could go out and serve the stew. That's easy. I just need some help, like getting it set up, getting somebody. So it's almost like I should have somebody Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every day of the week, right? I just have one volunteer, like somebody does the stew with me on Monday, somebody does the stew with me on Tuesday, somebody does the stew with me on, right? So that way they don't get burned out, because I can see Annie getting burned out. So I was like, hey, let's make the stew Friday for the potluck on Saturday. She was like, no, I'm making something different. I'm busy Friday. And that just meant that I can't come over there and cook and cut up all the vegetables, because that's like the easiest thing when Annie has me over. We just do everything there, right? It's like the best thing ever. So I'm like, well, okay, you know what? I should just do that at my apartment. Although I won't be there Friday night, I'll be pet sitting here, so I'll do it here. But my point is that I should be at farmers markets every day getting the vegetables and the stuff to make the stew that night. And I'm willing to do that. But I have to figure out a little bit of the financial stuff, because I can get all the fruits and vegetables. I'm actually committed to getting the veggies and not wasting the money. I'm going to the grocery store and buying the stuff, which is what I want to do. But I will be willing to go to more farmers markets like Mar Vista, because that's where Annie and I are having she's having a fruit festival with Vanessa and a couple other people this summer in June. So we're already expanding into the area. So we might as well just do food healers is what I'm saying. So I just have to figure it out. I just have to figure out a safe place to set up the tent and like have people do it with me. And I'm fully committed to doing it, at least starting out once a week for sure. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sarah. Oh, Dave, get your hand up.
Yeah, I just I wanted to kind of respond to both Miranda and Sarah. You haven't noticed I'm an older guy. I just turned 75 in August. So I've heard the stuff you young folks have been talking about most of my life. I mean, back in the early 60s, the word was commune. Now it's called intentional community. And Miranda, the one word I heard you say and what you weren't saying there, what you were saying at the same time, was this kind of inner sense of feeling powerless. Like there's so much you want to do, and you can't quite figure out how do I get there. that kind of place, and boy, do I hear that one. Boy, do I hear that one. I live up in Sacramento, so I can't come down and be there with you, Sarah, making the stew, because it takes me all day to drive down there. By the time I get down there, being an older guy, I'm wiped out for a week. So it's like, so what I can do for you two specifically is let you know that there's this old guy up here that sees you and he stands with you shoulder to shoulder and lets you know that you're seen and that you're felt. And share. I've been in many 12-step meetings in my life. I'm what's called poly addicted. I'm not addicted to parrots. I'm addicted on several levels. I won't go into them, the specific ones right now. That's not important really. The important point is I recognize that I am an addictive personality, and I have manifested many addictions in my life, and one of my passions, that's my grandson behind me. And he was 11 there, he's now 13. And one of my passions is the conversation between the generations. If you haven't figured that out yet, by the way, I'm talking to you. I've been doing this stuff called men's work, mythopoetic men's movement, since the early 1990s. And some people, they hear that and say, "Oh, what this guy meeting with men talking about? It's dangerous. Watch it." There's this way that being masculine has been demonized, and that's the only way to be, be enlightened and masculine is to really be feminine. It's like, wait a minute, stop. That's not true. What's happened there is the qualities that I really seen has been masculine. I really been looking at it from the shadow side of those qualities being operationalized, and those qualities are essential in generating and sustaining life. the place of being strong and making a decision, of doing something steadfastly, no matter what. That sounds soft to you, you know, but that's necessary. That's necessary in sustaining. It's for me, that is an essential quality in this thing, Jamin, you're calling transformational conversations.
Yeah. And in fact, I wanted to ask you, Dave, would you be willing to lead a conversation on men's movements or the divine masculine?
God, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
would you be willing to tweet that out?
I'm not quite sure. I'm not, there are parts of the newer technology that I have not partaken of, especially around a lot of stuff around Zoom meetings.
No, I'll tell you what, I think that's partly why we exist here, but we could tweet it out on your behalf if you.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be more than welcome to host a conversation with that and share my, in the context of 12-step meetings, my experience, strength and hope around those kinds of things. Like one of the things that's really true about a lot of men that have gathered around doing men's work is most of them are men that were originally and still are very sympathetic with a lot of the issues around feminism. You know, it's not about not being feminist. It's like there are issues inherent in being masculine that are. I mean, there's such a thing as finding what does it mean to be divinely masculine also. You know, so I can have more conversation about that. That's not a problem. And I'm also willing to have conversations about that where people take exception to that, because that's perfectly okay. You know, absolutely. For
Awesome.
sure.
Awesome. Well, let's follow up on that later.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. And another piece of that for me is this thing about the conversation between the generations. We've lost a couple of elders, really important elders, in the last month or so. For me, one of them was a poet by the name of Robert Bly. He passed about a little less than a month ago. He was 94. And another one was a really important elder in my life, Metta Problem, who was a Dagara medicine man from Burkina Faso in West Africa. And he just passed. He was 65, and he was someone also that was really important in the transformation in my life. In fact, you see that name on my thumbnail, Strong Bear. Well, that's a medicine name that I was able to accumulate that speaks to my animal spirit. I really resonate to bear energy, so I can speak to that also at some point. But yeah, yeah, and so a really important part for me, I'll say this, is the piece about the conversation between the generations. So Robert Bly was in an interview with Bill Moyers in the early 90s on PBS, and Robert Bly was quoting an author by the name of Robert Johnson, who had written a book entitled King, Warrior, Lover, Magician, which are the four male archetypes. And Robert Johnson was addressing a bunch of older men. And in addressing the older men, he asked them, and Robert Bly used a Southern accent because Robert Johnson was a Southerner. And he said to these older guys, asking them, when's the last time you ever told a young man you cherished him? You know, and I heard that as the elder in training, and something in my heart quivered. So these days, like Miranda and Sarah, when I see young people like you carrying your enthusiasm into being alive and wanting to do something, a part of me says, yeah, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it, and find a place of existing at the place of getting your heart broken, and just on that borderline, and know that there's someone behind you wanting to support you. Keep going on, even when you feel like not going on. So that's it. And I can say a whole lot more. And sometimes I can get to be overly verbose, and I'll stop for a second and say, at this moment, I have spoken.
Very good, Dave. Yeah. We're going off into a lot of different kind of tangent areas, all of which are important. And, so Dave, I would also encourage you to think about hosting a conversation between the generations.
Ashe.
Okay. Awesome.
Ashe.
Awesome.
Ashe.
Yeah. And so these are perfect examples of, no matter how far off on the, from the everyday these conversations are, we need to span the whole universe of transformational conversations. And the immediate way to do that is to encourage and invite all transformational conversations to participate in this universal action, this decentralized action of turning on your green light, right? And tweeting out, or by whatever means, diffusing, putting out there publicly your participation and your invitation for others to join. And you can specify what topics you're covering, and you can specify under what framework you're holding the conversation. If you're hosting the conversation, you get to pick the rules, as long as they're generally compassionate and give others an opportunity to speak and share, from time to time. Anyway, so, it's kind of, I experience it as one of those things that when you finally get it, something goes click, and then there's no turning back. It's like, wow, I get that this is possible. I get that, a hyper-connected universe of transformational conversations is possible. That's also decentralized, right? Once you get that, once you really truly get that, I say that there's no turning back. That's my experience. I know Marco's had the same experience, right? And that's what we're on the cusp of. And it's incumbent upon all of us to, to move that forward, because we need, getting back to the very beginning of this recording, we need we need the grand meta solution that will generate all the way through to planetary scale implementation, all the mega solutions that we need to save, heal, and transform life on Earth. So that's where we're at with that. I am complete. This has been an awesome conversation. We've gone into a lot of different areas, down a lot of different tangents that we didn't anticipate. But the bottom line is that if we all come together and participate in this universe of transformational conversations, we will form something so huge and so powerful and so hyper-connected, it will constitute something like a planetary brain. Imagine this universe. Again, look at James's beautiful artwork that James painted there. I love that painting. Goodness, it's so cool. Imagine each of those stars is a transformational conversation. Stage one of getting us all hyper-connected is creating that map of the heavens of these transformational conversations that trend towards the heavenly, that all together are moving towards a heaven on earth, right? Anyway, like I say, I'm complete. Dave had his hand up. I'll ask you to make it kind of concise, Dave, so I can wrap this up. Go ahead, Dave. Your microphone's muted.
In my earlier questions, one of the questions I had of you was to say a little more on this thing you labeled as heavenly hashtag. What does that speak to?
Yeah, the heavenly hashtags, plural, are all of those hashtags. There might be, say a month from now, there might be 200 of them that people are using.
Define hashtag.
Define hashtag?
Yes.
Okay, we'll cover that after this recording is over.
Okay.
So just stick around for that.
Okay.
And because it's something pretty much everybody knows about. So I just don't want to. We'll cover it after. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so just stick around for that. Any other final comments on what we've been talking about? Comments or questions? Let's hear from the folks who haven't spoken.
Well, we already know, as we're saying, like we already know these transformational conversations are already taking place out there in vast numbers, because in vast numbers, more and more people are increasingly becoming aware that our systems are failing us around us, or whether there be systems of political systems, infrastructure systems, weather systems, climate. It's all related. It all boils down to the whole lot of it anyway. At the end of the day, it all boils down to one thing. We have a big problem with the global warming, and that is constituting all the other problems. Really, I know now the political problems have existed because there's always political issues, but the biggest political problems are starting to arise now because of the global warming, because our political leaders are incapable, and I will say that, incapable of actually comprehending the severity of the situation, because they're too preoccupied with their they're too preoccupied with being focused on what their financial supporters are demanding of them for getting them into their position of power in the first place, basically. So they're all fighting their own game. They're all looking for their own, but none of them are focused on the actual severity of the problem. And until we get people to understand the severity of the problem, we won't work together anyway. But the ordinary person on the ground is starting to understand that we're starting to, that we are in a bad place. The conversations are taking place. They're just not connected. If we work on just ourselves putting out the hashtag Dutch42 and with a little explanation as to what it is while we put it out there with whatever it is we put out there. If you're putting out a video on YouTube, you hashtag it with Dutch42 and a little explanation as to what it is, and that it hopefully will become part of heavenly hashtags. Although I still say that we should just keep it simple. Keep it with Dutch42 for the moment, and just the little explanation as to what that is about, and that hashtagging that with whatever you're advertising, whether you're having a conversation about gardening, whether you're having a conversation about intergenerational conversation, as as we were just discussing there. Point is, if you hashtag Dutch42, a little explanation as to what it's for, that is going to bring all these conversations together. Just put that idea into people's mind. I think it'll eventually start to take off, rather than confusing them with they can all use their own hashtags, because as far as I know, there's no way of connecting those different. If people start using different hashtags, there'll be no way of connecting those conversations together unless all those hashtags were on a directory itself. So we should just keep it simple with Dutch42, a little explanation as to what it is, and that we all need to start hashtagging it to draw, to let people know we're out there and we want to connect. That's the simple message. We're here, our doors open, and we want to connect. And Dutch42. You know what I mean? Hashtag Dutch42. We're here, our doors open, we want to connect, we want to help. Keep it simple, rather than trying to overload people with all this information. Keep it simple. We need to do this by, we just say, no, you're putting out this video, that's grand. We just say, I looking at YouTube there now, as I do, and I come along there some weeks and I go, oh, have a look at this video, it's very interesting, it pertains to something we're talking about. Well, if I share that video, that link for that video if I decide to share it out on Facebook, well, then I should put it out on Facebook saying, think this is a good, video that you should look at, hashtag Dutch42. And it's and explain then that by what's hashtag Dutch42. This is a conversation that should be in the index of transformational conversations. It's part of the transformation of our planet. Everything counts, you know what I mean? We just need to get that message in somewhere. I'm babbling now, but you know where I'm coming from. Passing the feather.
Yeah,
I guess-
no, oh, go ahead, Marco, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll grab the feather briefly and just say that if you see this video and it makes sense, join us Friday. If you don't see if you see the video and it doesn't make sense, join us Friday. Join us Friday, enlighten yourself on our perspectives and the fact that we only need to change 2 things right now to bring the world back into the direction of heaven on earth. We need to stop the global overheating and reverse it. And we need to make food nutritious and healthy for everyone a basic human right. Join in the conversation Friday. Check the below for the links and times. And with that, I'm complete.
Awesome. Thanks, Marco. You left out the words plant-based food, no problem. That's why this is a collective intelligence. Now, loved everything you guys are saying. In fact, James, when you were saying, when you said those words, this is us saying we're here, it kind of reminded me of like an alien invasion. Melissa's grandfather, Howard Koch, wrote the radio announcement of War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells, the one that got people jumping out of windows and stuff like that. So, I think there's something to that. This message of we're here, hello, right? We have arrived, we have landed, because let's face it, what we're talking about, a planetary scale universe of transformational conversations that's all hyper-connected. Here's the map, here's the index, go crazy, go visit whichever ones you want, right? That's what'll turn it into a planetary brain. That's what's needed. And that's totally alien. It's totally alien, right? So let's maybe, and what got everyone's attention when the Beatles came to the United States? The meme, the British invasion. The British invasion, right? So I think there's something about an alien invasion that we might be able to cook up here, because the point is we need this to go viral, right? We need it to be not something where you say, hey, please help us do this, please support. People tune that stuff out. We want this to be like, did you hear? They're here, we're here. Some meme like, what, really? Like an alien invasion or something. I don't know, something. Let's cook up something creative here, but let's not discount the opportunity to make this really go viral in a big way. All right, Dave, go for it.
Well, I was hearing something earlier about the things that are necessary beforehand. And one of the ones that are essential for me in front of everything else that you mentioned, and it comes from the fact that I've been trained in the counsel process of passing the talking stick. And I don't know about you, but one of the things that's most frustrating for me in trying to engage in conversations is the level of times that I get interrupted. I'm trying to develop a point, and before I even finish the point, somebody wants to jump in with their perspective before I've even finished what I'm saying.
All right, after a quick pause there, I just want to thank everyone for being part of this amazing conversation. And let's move it forward tomorrow at the block party, starting at 7 a.m. Pacific time for 24 hours. Well, thank you all once again. And thank you, Sarah, for the heart and for all your great contributions. And thanks, everyone. It's been super cool. All right, and we'll see you all at the block party tomorrow, starting at 7 a.m. Pacific.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Are we recording? Are we done recording?
I'm about to hit pause. So
Okay, let me know.
anything. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.